Rebbe has it.
Thank the partners of today, the Deutsch family, the Nishmas HaChassidus, Bas Mordechai Shmuel, and Alta Chaya Esther, the Gershon Shavaliyah, and Simcha Nachas and Bob. Okay, the Seder, ViYesod HaChassidus, Henoch from Radzin on page Tes Zayin. And the Rabbi Schusilon is explaining the avoda, even for a regular Jew, the avoda of Yerida l'Merkava, of descending into the Merkava and ascending. And we were learning from the Zohar Kodesh in Parshas Yisro, Elginas egos iradity. Ginas egos iradity. Shlomo Melech says that he descended into the Ginas egos, into the garden of walnuts, of nuts. And we were learning how the Zohar Kodesh from Gershon is explaining that our avoda throughout life is Hashem Hu Elokim. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And Elokim means all of the pratim of life. That's why it's in the plural. All of the details, every single thing, the cup of water, the table, the paper, the book, everything is in that world of Elokim, where it seems to be separate. It seems to be separate from Hashem. It has its own independent existence. The reason it looks that way is because it's covered with layers, like the walnut, like the nut that has all these different layers and peels and so on. Our job is to unpeel, to remove, with our way of thinking and through our learning Torah and so on, to remove those peels and to be megala, the or, the shurish, the light and the root of all that exists, of that particular person or place or thing, that moment the person is in, to reveal that Hashem Hu Elokim. And that's called Yerida El HaMerkava, El Ginas Egos Yeraditi. That's the avodah of each and every one of us, to descend into that Ginas Egos, Yeraditi, in order to bring that up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem Hu Elokim, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, Yud Kei Vav Kei. The name Hashem, the name Havaya, the name Yud Kei Vav Kei means the Or, it means the Shurish, it means that light that is at the root of all existence. That's the Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, that's the Shem Havaya. Elokim, in the plural, is all the stuff that we see. That's Elokim. And in that world of Elokim, a person can make terrible mistakes. That's why there are Elohim Acherim. There are foreign gods, there are other gods, because one can veer away from the Shorish, Chas v'Shalom, and separate between Hashem and Elokim. So the root of all that exists is the Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Shem Havaya Baruch Hu. And Hashem Hu Elokim. That's the kavanah of Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. It's all one. So that is the avodah for each person according to his level, to descend into the Merkava. Merkava, we learn, means when something has different layers. Something is grafted, it has layers and so on. More kav. So to descend into the Merkava means for each person to do this avoda according to his level. And when it's something which is beyond his level, beyond his way to understand, of course he has to just accept a simple Emuna, and then we apply what the Gemara says, that this is something which is hidden from you. It might not be hidden from another person who's able to go into that and to understand it and to think about it in these terms of Hashem Elokim, but you're not able to do that. So each person has to be careful according to his madrega. We did not learn the note on the bottom. There's a note from Rabbi Nachman that he brings Rabbi Nachman. You see in Tess on the bottom of page Tazai. It says V'harav Kodesh B'haran Rabbi Nachman Mibraslov Omer K'maychen B'sichas Haran. It says Rabbi Nachman says in Sichas Haran B'zel Lashon Kodesh B'ni Mashomer Chazal. Regarding what the Gemara says, She'os L'Stakel Malamala Malamata Malafnim Malachor. The Gemara says you're not allowed to look you're not allowed to look above, you're not allowed to look below, or what was before and what's going to be after. The Gemara says you're not allowed to. Amar Rabbeinu Zal, Rabbi Nachman said, Shekol Adam v'Adam yesh lo b'chinas malamata. That there's no standard set place where a person's mind is not allowed to go to try to understand, to try to get to the depths of Hashem Elokim. There's no one set klal. Rabbi Nachman says every person has his own malamala mimcha and malamatam mimcha, malafnim, malachor. That's each person is different. So each one according to his madrega. That for that person, it's forbidden to go to that place. For another person who's holding by that, he can go into that. He can go into that thought, into that place. But for this person, he's not allowed to. Haklal shekol adam v'mokum shemistayim sichlo oslo lahalach yoser. Each person, where his intellect, where his capacity to understand and comprehend, where it ends, then he's not allowed to go any further. For that person, kizo eslo b'chinas malamala malamata. For that person, that's already considered lamala or lamata, whatever the difference is. We're not going to right now. Rak lismoch al HaEmuna levad. And that person is not supposed to try to understand this and to make those connections, just to be samech on simple Emuna. And ein lucha asik ben nistaros. He does not have asik ben nistaros, that which is beyond his comprehension. So let's continue. On the bottom of Tez Zayin, the Rabbi brings the Zohar Kodesh in Parshas Vayechi. On the left side, just the Hebrew translation. The Chazal tell us that during the time of Shlomo HaMelech, the moon was always whole. There was a time, there was that one period of time in history where things were as close to Mashiach, as close to Moshe Mashiach, as close to how it's going to be and how it should be as possible in this world before Mashiach, and that was the time of Shlomo HaMelech. So the Zohar says that Shlomo Yoresh Halavan, he was on this level that he received, or he inherited the Levana b'Milua, the full moon. Now, it didn't start off that way. Shlomo HaMelech tzarech l'reshes osa be'eis miuta. The moon went through its phases in his lifetime as well. So what does it mean that the moon was whole, was full during the time of Shlomo HaMelech? So what about like regular people like us? If we were walking in the streets of Yerushalayim, so we looked up and we saw all month long a full moon. So the Zohar Kodesh is saying that's not how it works. Regular people saw a regular moon. So what does it mean that during the time of Shlomo HaMelech the moon was full, the moon was whole? So the Zohar says he saw the moon be'eis mi'uta. He saw the moon when it was be'eis mi'uta, when it was diminished, when its light was dim, or even when it was completely hidden. And because of that, the Zohar says, Shlomo HaMelech descended deep into the darkness of this world. He looked at this, obviously all metaphor, but he looked at the world, just like Avram Avinu looked at the world and he saw that the world was a bira delekes, it was bizarre, strange, and and there's good and evil and so on. So Shlomo HaMelech looked into the world and he saw the darkness of the world, meaning that the moon was either going through different phases or was altogether hidden, and therefore he sought to understand the forces of evil in the world that Hashem created in the world. He sought to understand the darkness of the world. That's what it means. Al kein nishtadol das bedas haruchos v'hashedim, the shadim, the ruchos, all the different ruchos of evil, shadim. That was the koiches of the sitrachva. So we would say in our way of, or in our modern way of looking at things, that he went like deep into the inyan of the Holocaust, to that place of where the moon was, where the light of the moon was hidden, where it was dark. He went deep, deep into that darkness, where other people are not allowed to venture, where people can't go, into such places of shadim, of the darker forces in creation. He went there, Shalom Aleichem. Now we're not allowed to go to these places. So as far as other Jews are concerned, they just saw a regular moon. And they said, okay, I get Kodesh, I get Shiur. That was it. That was the end of it. But Shlomo Melech, for him, it wasn't the end. When the moon's light was hidden, Shlomo Melech didn't stop thinking, didn't stop making those connections of Hashem Elokim. So he was able to go even to those places of the darkest places of evil, and to be able to bring them up. So his Yerida El Ginas Egos Yeradati, he said those words. When Shlomo descended into the Ginas Egos, to the garden of nuts, he descended to that garden. He went all the way into that garden, deep down to the depths of the garden, and he was able to ascend from that place with Hashem Elokim, even from those darkest places, what the Rebbe calls the Levushim Harachokim, where Hashem is most concealed and most hidden. He went into the Levushim Harachokim. Kedei Reshes Halavana B'chol Habchinas, the Zohar says, in order to acquire the moon in all of its phases, not just when things are good, not just when things are easy and things are clear. He descended into the world where the moon seemed to be missing, where the light of the moon was gone, where everything was dark. Alginas Egos Yerati, Shlomo didn't stop. He went even there. Ubiyamav Shel Shlomo Melech, and that's the meaning of that. During the lifetime of Shlomo Melech, He'ira halavana b'chol hamadregas. The moon was shining. It was constantly b'chol hamadregas. The moon was shining. Again, it doesn't. The Zohar is saying it doesn't mean that regular people saw physically a whole moon. It means that Shlomo Melech brought this out in his avoda, and he was the king. And that avoda of Shlomo Melech caused there to be an awe in the world, even though that doesn't mean that everybody on their madrega experienced this or saw this. But Shlomo Melech was megala k'rei shamayim in such a madrega that even from the levushim harachaykim, the furthest, most distant places, and even in the worst Russia, he saw good even in the lowest Russia. That's what it means. And there's a Jew whose behavior is horrible, and the person seems to be the biggest Russia. It just means that his light is covered. The levushim mechaykim. What are levushim mechaykim? Whatever it is, whatever his averos are, those are levushim mechaykim. So this person is very, very covered. He's very concealed. The tzaddik is able to look, as we were learning about this yesterday in the Meshivas Nefesh, the Rabbi Nachman Chabur, that the tzaddik is able to look even at that Jew who's on the outside is the biggest Russia, and when anybody else looks at him, they don't see his light at all. They don't see this person's light at all. All they see is darkness. But the tzaddik is el ginas egos yeradi. The tzaddik is able to unpeel the Russia, and he's able to see even into the darkest heart, into the darkest heart, into the darkest mind, and the tzaddik is able to find the aura of the Levana, the light of the moon. So that's the inyan of Shlomo Malach. That's the inyan of the tzaddik. That the tzaddik goes into the ginas egos, and from there he brings out kavod shamayim, and through that he's makarev. He's makarev, as we're learning from the Torah of Azamra, Rabbi Nachman's Torah, that he's megala. Once he's megala the or, that little bit, that miyut ha'or, he's able to reveal even in the lowest person who's covered with levushim achaykim, the moon, a complete eclipse of the moon, where no one else can see any good in this person. The tzaddik finds that light, and through that he brings the person out. He's able to be megala that kavod of Hashem and to bring it out. That's called going down to the Merkava and ascending from the Merkava. And this is our avodah, every person's avodah at his level. We're not, Shlomo Melech was able to do such things that regular people can't do that. And the Zohar says that's what it means. The Yom Shlomo Melech, Hi'ira HaLevana B'chol HaMadregas. The Or of the Levana was revealed B'chol HaMadregas. Page Yud Zayin. The Tikkun Zohar on the left side. The Vadai Kutshabrichu Ushchinte. It's certainly Kutshabrichu, which is Yudke Vavke, that's Hashem. Ushchinte is Elokim. The Vadai Kutshabrichu Ushchinte. Remember, that means the sharish, the root, the source of light, and then how it's diffused in this world, which is Elokim. How Hashem appears to us in this world through reality that we see. The Zohar says that there is no difference between Kutshabrichu and Shchinte. Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Everything's Hashem. There is no difference. The Vada Kutshabrichu Shchinte lo shtan zamizeh. Al gabi acher mishtan. So in Metzius, everything is alles is God. Everything is God. In Metzius, what we're sitting in right now is all Elokus. Where we are, everything is Elokus. Nothing has changed. From before creation, nothing has changed. Everything is God. Hashem Elokim, Kutshabrichu Shchinte. Everything is this. Everything is Elokus. Nothing has changed. Aval gabi acher mishtan. But for us, it's changed. And this reality is concealed b'kama levushim, with many garments, b'kama kisuyim and coverings, b'kama klipas, and many peels, shells and peels. And that is the meaning of the trip of Shlomo Melech, where he journeyed into the Ginas Egos, the garden of levushim, of coverings. Al Ginas Egos Yerarati Shuhu Hayu Yodeh Beklipas Kulam. Shlomo Melech knew all of the klipas. He even married the daughter of Paro. We don't know what that means, and we just say we have HaEmuna that he was the tzaddik Sodom, and we don't know what to do about that. But he went into the darkest places to bring them out. Now we see from Chazal that something went wrong over there. There was a glitch over there. But Shlomo Melech's inyan was to go into these places. And we're not allowed to do such things. So he knew all of the, and that's what we see, the inyan of the whole thing with Shlomo Melech and Ashmedai, the king of the Shadim, and that took over his throne, and we don't find this by anybody else. Shlomo Melech was the Chacham Mikol Adam. We don't find by anybody else these things with the other side, and it's a very dangerous thing when I'll even talk like that. And there were a big Rishonim like Shapsat Tzvi and Mark Shema who said, the false Mashiach who said that this is what he had to do, and he did all kinds of horrible averas, saying that he was trying to bring out, that was his trip into Ginas Egos, but he just did disgusting things and he converted to Islam. So Shlomo Melech, we see, has this inyan with the other side, and he goes into these places, Ginas Egos Yerati, into the world of the Klippas, of the world of Ashmedai, terrible darkness. Therefore, every form of sorcery and magic, he was Baki, he knew completely. He was completely proficient in all of these, in all of the dark wisdom of the world. Because he knew the Klippas. He knew that world of the Klippas. And the faithful shepherd, ultimately that's Mashiach. Shlomo Melech was also a faithful shepherd. He knows how to break, to shatter all the coverings, to break through all of the coverings. And to reach the marrow. The moach means the marrow. So the bones are the klippas. Inside the bones you have the essence, the marrow. So there's a tzaddik like Shlomo Melech was able to break through all of the klippas and get to the moach. Marrow is called moach. Moach means the mind, means the essence. And he's able to break through. That means he's able to break through all of the shells, all of the layers of Elokim in the plural, even the most horrible manifestations of Elokim. He's able to break through that and to get to Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, Hashem, which is the Sha'ar, which is the Or, which is completely good. He's able to do that. Now we see that even great people failed. And the Arba Shenichnesu LaPardes, which we spoke about a little bit, only Rabbi Kiva went in, B'Shalom and Yosef B'Shalom, the others were damaged in different ways. Rabbi Kiva warned them, Al-Tamru Mai, that you're going to get to a place in your minds where it's going to seem like they're two separate worlds. That Hashem is not Elokim. That there's an independent koach, somehow, of evil, of darkness in the world. Which is where all other religions fell into. Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, they all fell into that Mayim. Not Mayim, Bisasom, like the old song. Into the duality of Mayim, and much more than duality, into many gods. That they went into that place. Therefore, a guy is incapable of coming to this Yichud of Hashem Elokim. Period. He's incapable of it. It makes no difference how firm he is, and how nice he is, and well-intentioned he is, and he got the Nobel Prize for religion or something. Doesn't make a difference. He cannot get beyond the place of Mayim. Only a Jew is able to come to a place of the Yichud of Hashem Elokim Hashem Echad. A guy cannot go to that place. B'shum ofen, lo magiya l'sham. If he goes through the process of gerus, and he's a real ger, and he's a ger tzaddik, he can come to it, but he cannot be giyuso, he cannot come to such a thing. Cannot be. He's going to talk more about that. That's Hashem Elokim, that's the Yichud of Kutchabichu U'Shchintei. That's the Indian, that's the avodah of a Jew in this world. Hashem, Yichud Kutchabichu U'Shchintei. And the person continues on with that, on his level, with entering into the matzah, entering into the sukkah. Whatever it is in life where on his level, he's able to enter into that place and to descend into the gan, into this Ginas Egos, and to bring out Kavod Shemayim from this moment in his life, from this experience in his life. Whatever it is that he's going through in his life. I had a conversation with a wonderful young man yesterday. Well, it wasn't a normal conversation, it was a WhatsApp thing, but just a young man who later lost his father a few years ago. I knew he was a very special person, and this young, he's around 20, 21. He's going through terrible nisyanis, terrible difficulties, and it's hard for him to hold on to things. He loved his father very much, and his whole life is taken away from him, and so on and so forth. It's a terrible thing. And for somebody, who's just happy being a yeshiva bacher and having friends and playing some ball and being a good guy, and then all of a sudden he's like thrown deep into the Ginas Egos. and feeling completely underqualified to find Hashem in that terrible Guinness egos that he's in. Doesn't know how to find Hashem Lakim, so I can't daven. I don't know what to do with my learning anymore. I can't. It's terrible. These nisyanis that every person has on her level, which the Rabbi is going to continue a lot with throughout the Sefer to talk about this Indian of these nisyanis of Elginas egos humanity. But Avram Avinu went through 10 nisyanis, and the 10 nisyanis that he went through covers all the nisyanis that a Jew could ever go through. That all time. And when Avram Avinu went through those nisyanis and he came out, B'Shalom, as Avram Avinu, it means that every one of us can come out B'Shalom. But it's hard. So the Zohar says in Tazviyah, V're'isi ani sheyesh, again Shlomo HaMelech's words, V're'isi ani, Shlomo HaMelech says, V're'isi ani sheyesh yisur nechacham and hasechlos. Shlomo says, I see that there's an advantage of chachma, of wisdom, over foolishness. But the words of Shlomo have to be read, the Zohar reads very carefully. For that you have to be a Shlomo Melech. That there's an advantage of chachma over sechlis, that even we know that. So what does it mean? Shlomo is saying that yisur and chachma and sechlis? Chachma is greater than sichlis, than foolishness, than stupidity. This is not regular sichlis, like someone that doesn't do well, in geometry. This is something different. And when he says Yisrael nechacham min ha-sichlis, it's a Shlomo HaMelech de Kevart. What's the vart? The Zohar explains. Min ha-sichlis mamish. Min ha-sichlis means I found the greatest wisdom by drawing it out from the greatest foolishness. You understand? I entered into the greatest foolishness, to the deepest and darkest stupidity, into the sichlis of this world, which is heresy, atheism, apikoresis, avodah zarah, sheidim, ashmedai. The Indian, even with women, as we see the Indian of Shlomo Melech. So he says, the Zohar says, min ha-sichlis mamish. Min ha-sichlis mamish bo ha-to'elis l'chachma. That the reason for the greatness of my chachma is that my chachma was increased through my descent into the sichlis. Min ha-sichlis. As I drew great wisdom, that wouldn't happen to us. We would just be destroyed. But Shlomo Melech says, regular chachma is regular chachma. That's nice, the nice yeshiva bacher, who's doing very well. But we see that there's a greater yisvana chachma min ha-sichlis. The greatest wisdom, Shlomo Melech says, is the wisdom that I was able to draw out min ha-sichlis, from the sichlis. It was from the opposite of chachma. I drew out sichlis, chachma. I drew out from the sichlis, min ha-sichlis. Min ha-sichlis. Min ha-sichlis. Min ha-sichlis mamish ba to'elis l'chachma. And each person on his level, when Hashem puts him to these places of sichlis, of foolishness and of darkness, he can become a greater person. And Am Yisrael is supposed to become a greater nation as a result of the craziness that it's just been through and it's going through. Shlomo Melech on his madrega, he was all. That's something we can't understand. But each person, the tachlis is reisis yesh yisrael nechachma min ha-sichlis. Min ha-sichlis. If you survive that experience of being thrown into the Guinness egos, then you're expected to be not only a survivor, but you're a greater person because of this of having survived that. You become a greater person. Min ha-sichlis. Yisrael nechachma min ha-sichlis. So the nisyanis of our generation are very different, and many things such as poverty and pogroms and so on, Baruch Hashem, there's still plenty of poverty and there's still tsaris, but it's very different than our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents. On the other hand, our ancestors did not have the Nisan of TikTok. On the other hand, our ancestors did not have the Nisan of TikTok. I don't even know what that is exactly. I just know it's something which is terrible, and it's on the phone. And our ancestors didn't have that Nisan. So when you read in the Sefer that our Madrega, the Madrega of this last generation is the high, that on the one hand it's very low, on the other hand it's very high, like Rav Kook writes in Hadar. That it's a very, very strange generation, the generation of the end of time. It's the lowest of the low and the highest of the high. So on the one hand, the Nisyanis, when it comes to poverty and pogroms, we don't have, for the most part, we don't have those kind of Nisyanis, although there are a lot of people that like to, as far as the pogroms are concerned, they're trying to get to work on it as much as possible. But we don't have that. So day-to-day life is much, 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 much easier. There's, there's heat, there's air conditioning. Life is much easier day to day. So Hashem has in every generation the Guinness egos of that time. And the Guinness egos of what we're living through is something different. It's different. But that's what Shlomo says. Min ha-sichlis. Min ha-sichlis. Min ha-sichlis mamish bo ha-toilas l'chachma. Ki im lo haisa nimtzei shtus b'olam. If there wouldn't be shtus, foolishness, shtus, and all of the consequences of shtus, which is aveiros and filth and tumah and all kinds of shvichas dam g'larayis and avodah and everything, if there wouldn't be shtus in the world, lo haisa nodas ha-chachma dvera, there wouldn't be chachma in the world. That's how Hashem made the world in such a way. That's bechir chavshis. And our vod is ve'isi like shalmach, sheish yisron l'chachma min ha-sechlis. Min ha-sechlis. Again, one doesn't go intentionally into sechlis, but there's plenty. You don't have to look for it. It's all over the place. V'lamadnu, and we learn the Zohar says, Chov hu al ha'adam shalom al chachma. It's an obligation of a person who has already acquired some wisdom, shall yilmad ma'at me'ashtus, that he should also learn some of the shtus, which Rav Kook called ma'at sichlus yikara, a little bit of holy or valuable foolishness. Ma'at sichlus yikara. Chovu al adam shalom al chachma sheyilmad ma'at mehashtus. L'das also, to understand the shtus. Again, on his level, to enter into that and to understand it. And to grow from that experience, to become, to be able to achieve higher madregas, and to acquire greater chachma as a result of that experience of being passed through that shtus, of now, through that descent, that means to go down to the Merkava, to ascend. Each person, to ascend, to become greater, to become bigger. So you have a person, for instance, you have, it's not uncommon, where a person descended into some type of an addiction, and came out from that addiction. Yarad, he descended into that place. Wasn't intentional, didn't mean to, but that's what happened to him in life. And he made some choices and friends and whatever was going on psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. He ended up in a bad place. He was stuck on drinking or drugs, whatever it was. And he went through that horrible, horrible tkuf in his life. So there are those who never climb out. But to a large extent, those who I've watched over the years climb out, it's yisron l'chachma min ha-sechlos. They become higher people. High. They were high when they were gone. They become elevated people. They become greater people than they were before, much greater. And oftentimes, those are the people that are helping the others get out. They know that chachma, they know that sechlos, they know that foolishness. They know that foolishness. There was somebody that interviewed many years ago. There was some newspaper person that got into Lubavitcher Rabbi. I think it was from a French newspaper. and he interviewed the Lubavitcher Rebbe. I don't remember exactly. It was a long time I read this. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, he spoke French, and he lived in Paris for some years. Well, he spoke languages even where he didn't live in those places, but he spoke French because he lived there. And there was some interview, and the interviewer asked the Rebbe, "Why is it that you do not allow the Hasidim to go to college?" For the most part, the Rebbe was case by case. So there were people that he sent Dafka to college, but mostly he did not want college to Hasidim. So this person thought that he outsmarted the Rebbe, so he asked the Rebbe, "Everybody knows that you yourself were in the Sorbonne in France, and you were in Berlin, and you have degrees and so on from these places." So the Rebbe's answer was, "That's why I'm against the Hasidim." El Ginas Egos your adity. I went into those places. So there's Hashkoche protest that Hakadosh Baruch Hu, that Hashem Zebach wanted that tzaddik to go into such places to either bring out or to save or to help others who would be caught in those places in such things, and for each person in his madrega. But what the Zohar Kodesh is saying is chayiv al adam shalom al chachma, that if you chayiv al adam shalom al chachma, because your kid could ask you the same question, well, you never saw a movie, Dad? Tell me the truth, you never saw a movie? Because you don't let your kid go onto movies, onto YouTube or Netflix, all these things, so you don't let your kid go onto them. So your kid asks you, and what, you didn't see movies? So then you have to come up with that drasha, there's that drasha of son, things are different, and we just had Leave It to Beaver and stuff, and Hazel, I Love Lucy, and this is not I Love Lucy what you have over here. This is very, very different, and the kid looks like he doesn't understand that. And you try to explain to him that Alginas Egos Yeraditi, and I learned a little bit of Chachma Min HaSichlus, and I'm trying to help you with the Sichlus that you're struggling with. And that's what we try to do as parents. Chachma Min HaSichlus. We're not perfect, and we can tell our children, no, I could try to help you because I was in that place. And the darkness, the darkness of the moon, or the lack of light of the moon when it comes to these things in Tafshin Pei Vav is very, very different than it was in Tafshin Chav Vav. It's very, very different now. And the stakes are much higher of getting lost. I don't know any of my friends that got lost, or their Yiddish got ruined because of Star Trek or something. And besides, we're all Jews. But there were all kinds of Jewish symbolism too. Because the guy that played Mr. Spock came from home, and and he spoke fluent Yiddish. I remember there was once an interview with him many years ago, and he started talking in Yiddish. He spoke fluent Yiddish, but the things nowadays, it's. And our kids and grandchildren can be telling it to their, Halavayim Shishakam, and it should be, or Halavana Karacham. But they're gonna have the same conversation. They're gonna put the arm around the kid and say that that place where the rocket is going to on the moon, it's not a nice place. That spot on the moon, you shouldn't go there. Because there's a chevra of his that are going on a trip to the moon, and it's a bad location. It's a dark spot on the moon. And you say, and your kid says, says, Abba, Tati, Daddy, all my friends are going to the moon for the weekend. We're joking. This could be they laughed at the things that we have now. They were laughing at not 20 years ago, 2 years ago. And it's not fair. How come I'm the only boy in my class? It's not. They can't go on this trip. So you're going to say, look, that's the dark side of the moon. This is I allow you to go to the lighter side of the moon, but you're not allowed to go to the dark side of the moon. But how come Maishi's parents are? Maishi's parents that's their family, but this is our family, and you have to respect our Masorah. And our Masorah is that we only go to the light side of the moon. So in 2 weeks from now, you'll have your Ben Hazmanim, and we'll let you go to the light side of the moon with those better friends. not the bad friends to the dark side of the moon. This is in every generation. And what that means, the dark side of the moon in each time, in each generation. What does that mean?
What pshat chovu ala adam?
Chayvu. Chov. It's an obligation. The Zohar does not permit us to remain simpletons. And you could say it, if you want to soften this or maybe interpret it, you could say that Hashem makes that chayv. In other words, I just want to be a nice, simple person. But Hashem chayvu means that you could want whatever you want. Hashem's going to send you into certain things. Hashem chov. It's a requirement. I might not feel that requirement, and I might not want to engage in that avoda of going into darker places. But chov al adam. Kachu. Kachu, like Rabbi Nachman, when he told the Chassidim that I mentioned a number of times over the past few years, Rabbi Nachman was once telling the Chassidim the whole story. It's all ma'aseh about this wonderful family of holy Jews that they worked for this other Jew, and they didn't have the money to pay, and they gave him an extension. He was renting that. This Jewish family was renting that place, and he had an inn, and they couldn't pay, and the guy gave him chances, and finally, it was the middle of the winter, and the guy just threw this family out. Threw them out. Rabbi Nachman was telling this to the Chassidim. So the other Jew, the owner of the place, threw the poor people out, and it was terrible. It was the winter, and Rabbi Nachman was telling the story that the family, they died in the forest, whatever happened, and the guy that threw them out sold the place to somebody and made a fortune of money. And that's where Rabbi Nachman ended the story. So a story's not supposed to end like that. Because all stories are supposed to end with what? And they lived happily ever after. So you can imagine the Chassidim just sitting there, they're waiting for the family that came back from the dead, and they took revenge, something. Rabbi Nachman just finished the story, and that the good people died, and the bad guy became very rich. And that's where we ended the story. And the Chassidim just sat there, and Rabbi Nachman said, that's what God does in the world. That was it. God does such things. And he must have told to a chaver that he felt needed to, that they could take kiyison hachacham min hasechus. So chayv al adam doesn't mean that a person necessarily chooses that, to obey that, or to keep it. But there's a chayv al adam. The Zohar is saying it's kachu. That's what it is. The Zohar that the Hashem takes you and throws you into something. Something happens, your parnasa, your health, your kids, chas v'chalila. And Hashem throws you into that place, into the ginas egos. So you could be saying, I didn't want to go to this, just like the Neshama didn't want to come into the world at all. So Neshama didn't, and Hashem says, you're chayiv to go into the world. That's it. Neshama doesn't want to go to the world. Neshama says, I'm totally fine up here, I don't want to go down there, it's a mess. Hashem says, you have to go. So that's a chayiv for adam. That's what the Zohar is saying. It's just an obligation, not that a matter of your choice. That's just what it is.
Could it be trying to understand why certain people do very foolish things, like why 33% of Jews voted for Mamdani?
Is that true?
Yeah.
33% voted?
Of the Jews, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's halakhically Jewish, but that's what they say. Maybe it could mean some people might want to go in to understand those Jews. I don't know. There's a foolishness, obviously.
Yes, there are two. For most people, the easiest thing is to just dismiss all of these.
Right.
And that's on their Vega. That's what they're holding. Maybe yes, maybe no. But there are others who will try to understand, like, why are these Jews broken, and how can I fix this? These are broken Jews who don't feel any connection to Eretz Yisrael, don't feel any connection, who are not upset that some jihadist, anti-Semite is the mayor of the largest Jewish city in the world outside of Eretz Yisrael. Maybe, I don't know, it's the largest concentration of Jews in the world are in New York. And how could it be? Who are these Jews that did that? So for most people, they'll just say, shaitan, they're idiots, and they're self-hating Jews, and so on and so forth. And for them, that works. And just
Like Rabbi Nachman played chess with
all these maskilim.
And they couldn't understand how.
Yeah. So then there are others who will try to descend into that gun and to try to understand what happened to this Jew. So people are trying to. This is a Jew. This is a Jew. How could a Jew vote for such a person? How is it possible? Everybody's walking around. I mean, the people on. It's so Pashut to us, like how could a Jew vote for such a guy? The Torah says these are broken Jews. I don't mean that it's a broken. They feel bad. They're broken. Something's wrong. They're feeling totally disconnected. How could it be such a thing? How could you have that there'll be Jews on campus that are going to march together? And how could you have some that do a cartonics that walk around with a bid and pace and that they're standing there together with Palestinians? How could there be such a thing? It's a bracha yid. So I don't know about you. I wouldn't go near that. I wouldn't go near that guy. I wouldn't let him into the shul, and I wouldn't let him go near. I wouldn't go near the guy. But there could be some big tzaddik in the world that can go, that enter into that place and to fix it. What?
Satmar. The big rough in the Satmar community met with him and his contingency voted for him.
It's a terrible thing. So on our Madrega, we just look at that and we shake our heads and we can't understand it. And their intention there was not to fix anything, it was to get some money. And does that mean that we now? So there are people that are saying that we're going to write off all of Satmar now. Satmar, we're done with Satmar. That's also ridiculous. Unless they're in the hospital and they need a bigger cholim, right? To write off Satmar. The Samach is filled with the holiest and kindest and most wonderful Jews. So how do we understand that there's a certain faction within Satmar that made this mistake, and then what's going on and so on? So for most of us, we can't. I don't know how such a thing happened, and it's terrible, and it was foolish, terrible, foolish, whatever it is. And I'm hoping that there will be tzaddikim that will descend into that place and we'll fix that. Something needs to be fixed. And in our world, so we have all kinds of. And the chevra from those chevra can look at our lives and say, "What's the matter with you?" Forgive me for saying this. How could a Jew shave his beard? It's a good question. It's a serious Sefer to shave a beard. I don't mean to criticize all these beardless heathens, but it's a very big question. Chavetz Chaim didn't let a person go up to the Sefer Torah without a beard. Could it be such a thing that a Jew goes without a beard? That it used to be that there was a time that every single Jew, any self-respecting Jew, would never go without a beard. Not up to the face, not a little bit, not a couple of whiskers, but unshaven, full-fledged Jewish beard. How could it be such a thing? So there are people that have that kasha on us. And it's a big kasha. And they can bring out all the artillery from the Zohar Kodesh and from the Chavetz Chaim, the Chassam Sefer, and many others. Rabbi Aaron Kotler, fire. Angry about the guy shaving. They knew that when Aaron was coming into the building, and because he during the week he lived in Bar Papa, during the week he stayed in yeshiva, and he was going up to his apartment. So there was a guy that was always on the stairs when they knew that Rabbi was coming up, and would scream at the guys to turn off all their shavers because it was at night, and guys would be shaving, and that he would go get all angry, get all upset if he heard an electric shaver going. So people could look at it. People could ask and say, "Oh, what's the matter with you?" So the easiest thing is to look at the shtusim of other people instead of looking at your own shtus. But regardless, chayvel adam shalom chachmas yimad ma'at me'ashtus v'ladasos. Tzaddikim not to enter as I said earlier, to enter even to the darkest Jew, even to this Jew that voted for that Russia. The tzaddikim not to enter into such a person. Those people they're just Nishmas, not Rishoyim. These people, they're Shoyim. They don't know. They don't know. They don't have a chush for Yiddishkeit. I don't know how could somebody vote for them. They're not. These are not evil people. There are some that are, maybe there are some that are evil, but they're mostly just nice people that don't know what they're doing. They're kids that it was young people, right? They were young. They went to college. What were they listening? What were the shiurim, the drushes they're listening to? Who were they listening to for the last 3-4 years? They were listening to the craziest things. So it's a the parents sent them there, and then the parents don't understand why my kid wants to marry out, or why my kid voted for Mamdani. You sent your kid to Columbia. You sent your kid to Rochester someplace. What do you think is going to come? Or Binghamton. What do you think he's going to come out with from these places? These are the world headquarters of Sichlis. And you sent him to these places, and your kid was not a madrega where he's able to extract Chacham and Sichlis. He just fell, and now he brings home a non-Jewish girl to. You sent him to that place, and he's bringing home a non-Jewish girl. It's hard enough to contend with this stuff when you send him to yeshiva. You sent your kid out to some place, and you're wondering why he has a girlfriend. Then you sent him there. So he was supposed to gain wisdom in that place. Yeah, he voted for Mamdani, and he's got a shiksa. So then what do you think is going to happen? You're a bigger fool than your kid. I mean, that's how it is with the generations. But every person, regardless, every person is going to be sent into it. The Zohar says everybody has to go into such places. Because the Chachma, the Kavod Shemayim, and Hashem Elokim, remember these are Levushim, Rechokim, Elokim, can bring out Yudke Vavke, to bring out Chachma min HaSichlos, and that's a greater yichud of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Shechina. If you bring out Hashem from these dark places, it's the biggest yichud to reveal Elokus in everything that exists. That's the highest yichud. Right,